Hey, it's Joddie Taylor of SnackySays.com. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm just laughing because this is the most background noise I think I've ever heard on a walk, or maybe on a walk where I was trying to record a podcast episode. And it's also breezy. As usual, we're going to roll with it. So today I wanted to talk about a bad habit that I used to have. Hopefully you don't have this bad habit, so it'll just be story time for you. But if you do have this bad habit, what I consider a bad habit, I'm going to share my story and how I got out of it. So my bad habit used to be when someone would offend me, or I was confused by them, or just didn't get why they did something, I would tell everyone but that person. I guess one way to look at it is I had a problem with confrontation. I would go into great detail with everyone but that person. And it was a consistent pattern with me, and I just wasn't evolving as a person, because I was going in this weird circle of complain, vent. And there's a time and place for that with your family and friends, with my family and friends. Of course, I don't think that'll ever change, but it just wasn't working for me. It just wasn't working. And so over time, I learned to say directly to the person, hey, and by the way, it was never, or at least for the most part, nothing big or dramatic. You know those things where it messes up your whole day, but you can't remember the details 2 weeks later, a month later. Even now, because this was a huge period in my life where I was in this pattern, and I can't really remember any details, but I know this was a bad habit of mine. So I came to realize that I needed to tell the person that offended me or hurt me or confused me. And you know what? Those conversations were really short. Way shorter than when I was telling somebody else about what happened. Because usually the person didn't mean to offend me, had other things going on, was equally confused, or they were yeah, that's what I said, and that's what I meant, or I didn't get a response. But it was never really about the response. It was just me being able to use my voice and say how I felt and then let it go, as opposed to the drama I was in. It was All My Children, Days of Our Lives, soap operas, all rolled up in one, because I was creating this drama. Now, if I didn't say it already, I want to point out I was genuinely upset, offended, hurt, confused, 100%. So I'm not this isn't self-deprecating humor where I'm oh, I was just being dramatic. No, I wasn't. I really felt what I felt. But at the same time, I realized I didn't need to spend all of that time and my family and friends' time on those situations, when I could have had a pretty brief conversation with someone, set a boundary, and in setting that boundary doesn't even have to be hey, I am setting this boundary. Now that I have, I don't know what's the best way to phrase it, because every situation was different, but in some cases, I had to call somebody on something. I had to clarify something. I came back and asked hey, what was going on with A, B, and C? But now through that action, they know, oh, okay, especially if their intention was indeed to be a jerk, for lack of a better word. It's okay, now I know when I say A, B, and C to Joddie, she's going to have a response. She's going to say something to me. There's going to be a conversation. So anyway, I hope this helps you. This is again one of those things that once I realized it, once actually someone did say this to me, once someone said it to me, it changed the trajectory of my life in terms of communication, and I never looked back, because I definitely had this pattern that was not serving me. and I wasn't using my voice to the person who needed to hear it. And you know, the other thing I'll say, because I'm conflating a variety of different episodes and conversations. Hurt people, right? And so that person who's being really brusque or rude, you don't know what's going on in their life. And I found that if you just take a moment, it's not true for everyone. Some people really are just jerks. But if you take a moment and say, hey, you said this and I felt that way, maybe you'll learn something that you didn't know. You know, like I'm speaking calmly right now and I'm reflecting. I have definitely had times in my life where I was on the edge. And if someone said something innocuous to me, maybe I would have bit their head off or been close to it. And it would have seemed like, where is this coming from? So I get it. I get that people have things going on. And I get how and why it can happen, because our experiences form our responses to other people and how we communicate, right? But that energy back and forth of like, I feel bad, you made me feel bad, or I think you made me feel bad, so now I'm going to make you feel bad. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't feel good. So my point is to bring it on home, to communicate how I feel, but never to transfer that energy so that the other person feels bad. I just want to clarify. I just want you to know how I feel, how I felt in that moment. So it just comes down to dialogue. And for me, growth. It really helped me grow as a person to be able to use my voice and direct it to the person that needed to hear it. All right, I hope this is helpful if you needed to hear it. If you didn't, please share it with someone who you think might. This is Joddie Taylor of snackysays.com. Thank you for listening and take care.